Now, if there is one guy whose future we cannot wait to see unfold, that is definitely Mattia Binotto. After leaving the Maranello team, it's clear that the Swiss engineer needs to find another home, and while it's a bitter pill to swallow, his next home could be with some of his former team's fiercest rivals. Things went to the extent of Binotto being rumoured to join Mercedes, and these rumours have started to spiral out of control. Mattia Binotto has left Ferrari after 28 years with them, stepping down from the team principal's role that he's been doing for 3 straight seasons. He was appointed back in 2019, and while many thought that it was a good move back then, Binotto has likely found himself at the wrong place at the wrong time. The team was penalised harshly for their cheating in 2019, being forced to run with less fuel in 2020 and having their worst season in recent times by finishing 6th in the Constructors' Championship. On top of that, Binotto and Vettel had a bad relationship as a principal driver, which led to Vettel leaving the team. This is when things began to go wrong for Binotto, who despite returning the team to winning ways in 2022, as was expected of him when he was appointed as team principal, was unable to withstand the pressure and had to relinquish his position as Ferrari's leader in 2023 and beyond. Now, Binotto is the type of principal to always give both drivers equal chances, which is something he's been doing in 2021 and 2022 with Leclerc and Sainz. In 2021, Sainz was able to narrowly outperform Leclerc in the Drivers' Championship, while in 2022 it was the Monegasque who had the more dominant season. Nevertheless, the relationship between Leclerc and Binotto has reached the point of no return, and obviously the team sided with their superstar driver and decided that Binotto should leave the team in order for Leclerc to feel happier in Ferrari and push for the championship in 2023. Whether this was a good or bad decision by Binotto, 2023 will tell. Now what we have no idea of is where Binotto will land in 2023, which is quite an interesting topic to talk about. He has all the experience a guy like him could wish for, and that's why it's very interesting to see where Binotto will take his talent. Obviously, his 3 years at Ferrari demonstrated that he's not particularly good at managing people, which is why the team principal role may be out of reach, given that Red Bull and Mercedes do not struggle in this area. But that doesn't mean his engineering genius mind wouldn't fit in with Mercedes and Red Bull, as the Silver Arrows would desperately need some assistance in making their engine faster in the coming period with the engine freeze setting in place. Binotto has been linked to Mercedes, and while the team principal seat is logically out of reach, there are still strong chances that the Swiss engineer will join forces with his colleagues in the Brackley-based squad. Wolff has been really dominant with Mercedes, and obviously, with him being a part owner of Mercedes F1, he's here to stay for quite some time. The team won 8 consecutive championships under his leadership, and telling Hamilton and Russell that they would have to perform under a new team principal, such as Binotto, would not be well received. But still, Binotto could see his future in Mercedes, such as him joining forces with the high-performance powertrains division in Brackley, which is practically his expertise. That is what he was doing best at Ferrari, and that's what he'll continue to do for the rest of his life in F1. So if there is one team that can offer him this starting position, it has to be Mercedes. But why do we believe this? Well, because Mercedes lost a significant amount of staff to Red Bull, their fiercest competitor, and Binotto could fill a gap that has been stretching out in Brackley for 2 years. Binotto does have one colleague that he can look up to if he is to follow the path from Ferrari to Mercedes, which is Aldo Costa. Aldo left Maranello following a poor start to the season in 2011, and as an engineering director at Mercedes, Costa had a very good run with the Brackley-based squad from 2014 to 2018. This is a prime example of how sometimes you just don't fit in the environment, which is why Binotto could find his next home at Mercedes, showcasing the ability of a good and strong engineer to his peers. Yet, some words couldn't be forgotten, and it seems like the tension that is present between Wolff and Binotto is still in the air. When Wolff was asked about Binotto's potential landing at Mercedes, the Austrian added that there is too much porcelain broken between us, hinting that Binotto will never find the perfect working environment with a Brackley-based team. So what are some of his other options as well? Audi would obviously use Binotto's expertise if they entered the sport, given the fact that Vasseur will likely leave the team to join Ferrari from 2023 on. Audi will need a much more experienced team principal who's desperate to show that he can, after all, lead a team to success. On top of that, Binotto could be reunited with his old friend Vettel, and both of them will have a chance to prove that it was Ferrari that presented the trouble and not both of them as individuals. However, whether Audi will choose Vettel or not is a far-fetched scenario and question. What does go in Binotto's favour is that Audi is a new team, and they'll likely give the commanding back to someone who has spent quite some time in the sport. Obviously, Horner and Wolff won't be available, and the next one that has been around the sport for quite some time is definitely Binotto. Audi is a team with a lot of experience with hybrid technology, and the powertrain that we'll use in 2026 is expected to be based on the F1 engine that sister company Porsche built when they were close to joining forces with Red Bull in 2017. After all, Binotto is a celebrated engine specialist, and no one else could do the job better than him. That's why the Swiss-born Italian would be the high-risk, high-reward solution for Audi, who, although they failed to meet the championship-presented challenge for Ferrari in 2022, did accomplish their goals with the Maranello team and brought it back to winning ways in 2022. That's something Audi will undoubtedly appreciate and take note of, and we need to pay closer attention to the team that will enter the sport in 2026, especially given that the current team principal is on his way out. And if Audi doesn't work out, Ferrari's biggest rival in 2022, Red Bull, could offer Binotto a landing spot. While both of these teams have been fierce rivals in 2022, going head-to-head on multiple occasions, let's remind you something. Red Bull and Ferrari were once collaborators back in 2006. Ferrari was the first engine supplier to Red Bull, and now that Red Bull has grown into this strong team that has its own powertrains, the expertise of Binotto would be more than welcome there. With Red Bull not being able to agree to working terms with Porsche, Binotto's expertise in further upgrading the engines of Red Bull and showing that he's a valuable engineer is exactly what the Austrian team would need. Plus, Red Bull would have the very rare opportunity of signing a former team principal and a guy who's been around the sport for 28 years, meaning that nobody else could use his expertise. If you think about it, this would be like collecting the final gemstone in the Avengers, and Red Bull would be the unbeatable Thanos in this outcome. Whether this will see the light of day, it's up to us to wait and see. And if it doesn't see the light of day, Aston Martin is always here to offer some kind of working environment and position for top-notch engineers. After all, it seems like Aston Martin understood that copying will only get you so far, and is now pushing the limits to create a strong and reliable company that will bring out the best in Alonso and Stroll. Binotto would be the perfect addition to the team that has already built new wind tunnel facilities near Silverstone and has shown in the second half of the season that they can fight for the midfield positions. Binotto has worked with Alonso previously, but not as his team principal. It's unlikely that he will be the team principal now as well, with Crack doing his job perfectly well. However, time will tell whether Aston Martin has the perfect landing position for Binotto or not. So, what do you think about the Swiss engineer's perfect landing spot in F1? Let us know in the comments down below.